Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Art Travelcast. Today we will talk about 10 art books you must read in 2025.
I will start with the classic, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, because it's not only a novel with art in the background, but also the book itself is artistic and written in great style. It tells the story of a young man who sold his soul for eternal youth and beauty. Three well created characters, each of which deserves attention. The cynical Count Henry, the beautiful and young Dorian, and the painter Basil. The author himself said, I see Basil Hallward in myself. The world sees Lord Henry in me. Someday, perhaps in another era, I would like to become Dorian. The book contains a treasure trove of aphorism, something Wilde was famous for. And I think this novel is the best example of it. An ideal book for lovers of aesthetic and moral dilemmas and brilliant language.
I agree, a great iconic novel. I advise against watching film adaptations that differ from the book in terms of plot and quality. Definitely the book first, then the movies. I wouldn't be myself if I didn't mention one of my favorite writers, Charles Bukowski. His books and poems are very autobiographical, so the artist's motive is very common. Simplicity, honesty towards the world and himself is what Bukowski is. Additionally, we can choose from novels. Here I especially recommended the controversial Women, short stories, and white poetry. You either love Bukowski or you don't understand him. Lots of action, lots of thoughts for fans of the West USA, LA, and world of Hollywood. I recommended Charles' book Hollywood about the behind scenes of the making film.
Perfect phrase. You either love Bukowski or you don't understand him. I fully agree. Mm, Another novel I would like to mention is Tropic of Cancer by Henry Miller. The author's debut, consisting of 15 episodes from the life of an American immigrant, a starving intellectual who undertakes all kinds of work in order to devote himself to loving memory. Many references to all kinds of culture, a language devoid of euphemisms. Miller described his novel as an insult to seven fundamental values and symbols of culture: art, God, humanity, destiny, time, love, and beauty. The book became controversial after the US refused to publish the book, and Hemingway himself helped smuggle it out.
I love Henry Miller, the pioneer of the Beat generation, and author of the heavier type. Speaking of Ernest, I would like to talk about Hemingway's book, The Sun Also Rises. The story of a group of artists, great characters, very colorful, dynamic action, fantastic dialogues, one of my favorite Ernest books. In the background, Paris and Spanish bullfights.
Okay, it's time for the experimental but also most famous novel, Hopscotch by Julio Cortazar. The book is special in that it can be read endlessly. One version of reading is provided by the author himself, but each of the chapters and even pages can also be read in any order. Certainly, for a stream of conscious lovers, not easy to read and not easy to read at once. Intellectual with jazz and stimulants in the background, for those bored with classic novels.
Stake on the topic of Beat Generation, I must mention the book and the hippos were boiled in their tanks. The 40s, New York, the beginning of Kerouac's work, a portrait of artists of the time, the beginning of a new artistic trend, a novel published after 60 years, Icon.
Mhm. For lighter books with art in the background, I can recommend the Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. The victim of a murder committed in the Louvre is the museum's curator. A gripping thriller, perfect for lovers of history, art, and conspiracy theory freaks. I also recommended the film adaptation. It's really worth seeing.
We leave the Bohemia of New York and return to the classics. Last for Life by Irving Stone, the best biography of Vincent van Gogh, one of the best artist biographies in the world. An iconic book, facts presented in a fictional form. Every fan of Vincent and his biography must read it. A picture of an amazing grief-stricken painter who was ahead of his time and sold only one painting during his lifetime to his brother. A sad story of one of the greatest painters in the history of art.
And finally, I would like to mention the Diaries of Andy Warhol, but Hackett. Warhol kept diaries faithfully from 1976 until the last week of his life. Written at the height of his fame and success. Warhol records his evening at Studio 54 and his journeys between London, Paris, and New York. It describes the events and life of New York with characters from Jim Morrison, Calvin Klein, Estee Lauder, Muhammad Ali. The diary contains many doubts about the art, life, and love of the pop art icon. A brilliant multi-dimension book for enthusiasts of emerging modernity in art. A mini series on Netflix was created based on the diaries, which I mentioned in the episode dedicated to my favorite films and series. I encourage you to listen and watch the series.
The last series of book I would like to talk about are the art albums published by Taschen. Iconic series. You can find an album of the topics of every artist, trend in art, design, architecture, photographers. Huge selection, great quality. We have dozens of them, and we definitely recommended them as a source of knowledge, entertainment, and inspiration.
Yes, Taschen is definitely one of my favorite art album releases. Very good items for artists and art lovers. I hope that after listening to our episode, you will reach for at least one item from our list. We encourage you to have a nice week and see you next Tuesday.